What's up guys, Chaz here. Welcome back to Module 1, Lesson number 3. In today's lesson, we are going to dive in a little bit deeper on the 4 different business models for Amazon FBA. Now, in our personal Amazon business, I have experience with 3 of these 4 methods, and I'm going to be in future lessons bringing in experts on each of these to teach you more in-depth training on them. I personally have listed these what I believe is the best to start with and work your way into for the next ones. First is going to be one of my personal favorites, which is retail arbitrage. Retail arbitrage is what I recommend people start with for a few different reasons. One, it's going to be a form of quick cash. This is not the type of quick cash that I had mentioned in the first lesson, because you should understand by now, if you have the right mindset right now, we are not in this to make quick cash. But what I mean by quick cash with retail arbitrage, it's going to be one of the fastest returns on investment compared to the other ones. Retail arbitrage is great because you can go out today with your Amazon Sellers app, go up and down the clearance aisles, Walmart's, Target's, Kohl's, all the major retail stores, and you can start scanning and finding product, bring it home today, make a shipment, and have product on its way to the warehouse tomorrow. If you use another method, such as online arbitrage or wholesale, where it requires shipping to you, there's going to be a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks delay before you can even send that product to Amazon. So when I say quick cash, that's what I'm referring to with the retail arbitrage method. You can go out today, get product, and ship it in ASAP. The other big benefit of doing retail arbitrage to begin with is you're going to get a lot of practice by scanning a lot of bad items. Typically, when you look at clearance items in stores, and the clearance aisle is where you're probably going to start, that's where every newbie starts. There's some great product to be found that's on clearance, but it's the low-hanging fruit of the business. But it's a great starting point because you're going to be able to take your phone, use your Amazon Sellers app to scan product, and you're going to see all kinds of different products. You're going to see a lot of bad ones. You're going to find a few good ones. And I love this method for teaching people. I love to take people into a physical store, download Sellers app on their phone and tell them to get to work. And I'm right there with them, showing them how to do this because everyone does the same thing. You scan a product, you look at it, you see a rank at the top. You don't know what you're really looking at, what the ratings mean, the feedback. There's so much involved with just looking at a listing to begin with. So with retail arbitrage, I definitely recommend that you start with it because you're going to get a lot of practice in. It's a great way to learn the ropes and you're going to be able to build up a little bit of cash flow in the beginning. And retail arbitrage, it doesn't matter what employees tell you, it is not illegal. I don't know why some employees are going to literally tell you it's illegal, but it's going to happen at some point or another. When you are doing retail arbitrage, here's the first thing that you're going to do. When you see somebody walk by and you're scanning something, you're going to want to turn away and act like you're not. The number one tip I can give you with building a retail arbitrage-based business is your business is going to be 10 times easier when you make connections with employees and managers. So you don't want to run into the store and just scream that you're a reseller, that you're building an online business. You want to be able to work with managers and employees and let them know you run an e-commerce business and you help stores like theirs liquidate excess inventory. That's the verbiage we use when I'm out in the field doing retail arbitrage myself and I'm talking to employees and managers. I've made some of my best connections that way. And what happens is when managers need to hit their quotas, which they do have, you are going to be the one that they can either text or make a phone call to when they're marking stuff down. When it's freshly put on the shelf, they put those clearance tags on it. They're going to send you a text or give you a phone call and say, hey, I just marked a bunch of stuff down. You might want to get over here. That is going to help your business grow tremendously with retail arbitrage. And you're also going to hear a couple shortened abbreviations for all these, by the way, so I'll just put them in here. RA is the definition for retail arbitrage. So when you look in Facebook groups or Instagram or YouTube and you hear the term RA, it's just simply finding any major retail store. And it doesn't have to be a major retail store, by the way. Here's a little bonus tip. Some of your golden finds, your honey holes, are going to be in the smaller regional retail stores. These are stores that may not be nationwide, and especially if you're getting into the grocery category, there's some amazing smaller chain regional stores that you can go find your honey hole. Method number 2, another one of my personal favorites, is going to be online arbitrage. You're doing the exact same thing you are with retail arbitrage, except for you're using online websites. You see, as much as I love retail arbitrage, you get that treasure hunter high when you find stuff in the store. You walk into a store, you never know what you're going to find. Sometimes you walk in and you'll find $1,000 profit. You'll fill up grocery carts. It's great. Other times you don't find a single thing. It's part of the grind. As much as I love it, there is one major downfall to retail arbitrage. That is the fact that you have to put in the most amount of time on any of these 4 business models. See, with retail arbitrage, you have to get into retail stores. Now, if you live in a smaller town like we do down here south of Portland, I've got a 45-minute drive to get to my nearest major retail store. And if I'm looking for certain types of items that I'm going to sell on Amazon, I'm not going to just one store. My RA days, my retail arbitrage days, are usually 10 to 12 hours long. It doesn't make sense for me to drive out and hit 1 or 2 stores. It makes more sense, since I'm doing the driving anyways, to go hit 8 to 10 stores. So that time can really add up week by week. So as much as I love retail arbitrage, the biggest downfall of it is the amount of time that you're going to put in, and you have to look at the wear and tear on your vehicle, the gas that you're going to spend. You need to be tracking your mileage. We're going to talk about in another series here. So this is why online arbitrage is way more efficient than retail arbitrage, because you're able to source oftentimes the same products that are going on clearance in store are sometimes also clearanced online. You can catch these deals online. Let's say Target.com is running a video game clearance. You can score those video games on Target.com. They usually are pretty good about their shipping. They'll get to you within 3 to 5 business days. You then put your Amazon FBA labels on them, which we'll cover in a future lesson, ship them to Amazon FBA, and boom, you're able to sell those. Or being video games, I'm a big fan of merchant filling video games. You can also play around with that method too. So the biggest factor with online arbitrage is simply the convenience. You don't have to go drive for hours to go find product. You can sit at your computer, maybe spend 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, however long you want. You're at your computer at the convenience of your home. I've done them in coffee shops. I'm a big fan of working in coffee shops just to stay focused. And I'm telling you, when you're able to focus on a computer for about an hour to do online arbitrage, sometimes I find more stuff in that 1 hour online than I do 3 hours in a store. Now, the downfall of online arbitrage is you are going to have to wait for shipping time on this. With retail arbitrage, you can go out today and get stuff for a shipment. With online arbitrage, you're going to have a 3 to 5 business day wait. And on really fast selling product, sometimes you're going to run into what's called price tanking. This is where everyone is buying the same product. Everyone freaks out and they all tank the prices because they feel like they're going to lose money. So if you're waiting for an order online to be shipped to you, sometimes you're going to miss that window to sell your product at a profit online, and you have to wait for what we call the low ballers to sell out first, and then you can make your money. And with any of these business models, there are going to be pros and cons. I'm a big fan. If you're going to start, use retail and online arbitrage. You can build those together because they complement each other. Where one lacks, the other one has strength, and vice versa. So retail and online arbitrage are my 2 favorite methods, especially when you are a brand new person in this game. The other big benefit of retail and online arbitrage is you can start with a far less amount of capital than what you need for the next one, which is wholesale. With online and retail arbitrage, for example, we started our personal business with $500. If you have $100, you can go out today and find what you can for $100 and turn that $100 maybe into $140. And then you take that $140, you go and find about $200 worth, and you can start to snowball from there and build up your cash flow. Now, once you have some cash flow and you get into multiple thousands to play around with, that's when wholesale becomes an amazing business model to get into. This is something we're personally diving into more this year, and it's been fantastic so far. So with wholesale is going to be the process of purchasing typically larger volume and quantity directly from the brand through their manufacturer or through a middleman, which is called a distributor. So when we're looking at the chain of custody, when it comes to a physical product, typically you're going to have the brand is reaching out to a manufacturer. That manufacturer is going to be producing and creating these products. They make them in very large quantities typically. From there, they get sent out to middlemen, which are called distributors. The distributors then go and sell their product to retail stores such as Walmart or Target. And then from there, it goes to the end consumer, the customer. So what we can do with wholesale is we typically are going to bypass the retail stores. We are going to bypass the distributors. We're going to try to get to the top of the level, which is that manufacturer level. So this is where you get to order direct with brands. You are going to be ordering by the pallet or the case. This means you can order large quantities of one SKU. So when you're doing your research and you're trying to find different products to sell, you can typically go through a distributor, which is a middleman. They are going to have their own markup, but oftentimes you can find some decent products with distributors. Ultimately, you want to be working directly with the manufacturer level though. And with wholesale, this whole process, even with retail and online arbitrage, you are selling other people's brands. You are not the owner of any of these brands. You are simply acting as a distributor yourself for the online platform. Now, when you get into wholesale, like I mentioned earlier, typically you're going to want to have a little bit of capital to play around with. A startup recommendation is going to vary depending on who you talk to. I've talked to many people that built a huge foundation of their wholesale business off of a $1,000 investment. And then other people started with $50,000. So you start with what you have. If you only have $500, I would highly recommend that you start with retail and online arbitrage. If you only have $1,000 or $2,000, I would probably recommend you stick with RA and OA, which I personally would recommend about $5,000 to start with minimum, because this lets brands know that you're going to be a serious buyer. Even if you are selling product out of your spare bedroom, or you're building your business out of your garage, which we did for our first 2 years, distributors and brands and manufacturers, they want to sell business to business. They don't want just a flipper out of their garage. So you have to present yourself in a serious business owner fashion, which in this world, money is going to talk in this game. So if you come up to a brand and you tell them, I want to place an opening order and I can spend about $5,000 a month, they're going to take you way more seriously than if you say, I only have $1,000 to spend on this. So that's the game of wholesale. You're going to be going for a larger volume, typically with your margins. Let's talk about ROI real quick, return on investment. With retail and online arbitrage, you can most times get 70, 80, 90, even 100% ROI. With wholesale, typically your margins are going to be a little bit slimmer. So you're going to be looking more for the 30, 40, 50% range. Some people on a multi-million-dollar level, once you get to that scale, they're totally fine doing a 10, 15, or 20% ROI because they're doing such large volume that it makes up for it. Ultimately, this is just going to come through trial and error and you going through the process yourself to see which area of the ROI that you like best. A couple really beneficial things about wholesale. You're going to enter this Amazon world of being a seller. One big thing you're going to run into is brand and category restrictions. When you work with distributors or wholesalers, you are able to use their invoices for their products, their brands, and get ungated or unrestricted in virtually any category and any brand on Amazon. Amazon wants to see that you're working with legit people because they've had loads of inauthentic products being sold on their platform. So when you see a restriction pop up, that's simply the brand telling Amazon, we don't want third-party sellers on our listings unless they are approved. And typically that approval is going to come through a letter from the brand or working with a distributor and using that invoice to then apply and get ungated. That's a massive benefit of doing wholesale is you're not going to run into those brand restrictions as often. And when you do, you can use a wholesaler, get that invoice and apply and get unrestricted. On that same level of brand restrictions is you're going to be able to have a lot less competition on some of these categories in these listings. Because for people doing retail and online arbitrage, you can't use those receipts to get approved for various brands typically. Now, if you're working with a wholesaler on a brand that doesn't like third-party sellers, so they put a restriction on that brand, you as a person that's working with a distributor is going to be able to go in there and sell that product when the retail and online arbitrage guys are not going to be able to. So the competition level, the saturation in the wholesale industry is going to be a lot less to deal with. So far you should have a basic understanding of retail arbitrage, RA, online arbitrage, OA, and wholesale. Oftentimes in groups, Facebook groups, Instagram, you'll see WS, that's wholesale. The fourth and last business model is going to be private label. Private label is considered kind of the top of the food chain in the Amazon world. Private label, instead of selling other people's brands like you are with wholesale, online arbitrage, and retail arbitrage, you are not necessarily inventing your own product. While you can do that method, if you have a specific idea, something you want to create and invent, this is technically going to be your private label. But most oftentimes, what people are doing in the private label world is they are finding hot selling items on Amazon. They're going to China, finding a manufacturer that can make that product. They'll add some little variation, some little tweak to it to consider it their own. Sometimes you have to work around patents that are on these products. The design is a certain way that you cannot copy, so you change the design just a little bit. You come up with a brand name, you get your logo, everything is printed on that product. It is brought over and imported to the US. It is now your private label product that you send in inventory to Amazon. The same model we talked about with FBA. You create your own listing from scratch. You're not piggybacking on someone else's listing like you do with retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, and even wholesale. You're creating your own listing. You take your product photo, you write the description, you put those bullet points in there, and then it is your job on the marketing side, which is probably the hardest part about private label. Finding the product is one thing, but marketing it to be able to sell is one of the most difficult tasks. Private label is that one model that we have not ventured into ourselves yet. So instead of me talking about things I have no experience in firsthand, I can give you an overview on this video. And in a future lesson, I'm going to be bringing in a private label expert who is doing well over 8 figures to teach you more about that. Now, private label is extremely lucrative. Once you get your listings created and you learn how to properly market them and you start to have those consistent sales, to replenish your inventory is a few simple clicks. So once you have the fire started, it's a very simple process to keep it going. There are a few pitfalls here though. This is the number one reason why we haven't gotten into private label yet. It requires a lot more capital and a lot more delay on your return. What I mean is when you do private label, you are ordering a mass batch. Sometimes on the low end, it's going to be 500 units. On the higher end, you might be ordering 10,000 or 20,000 units. This typically is coming from China because that's where it's oftentimes going to be the cheapest route. There is a 2 to 3 month delay if you're choosing sea shipping to get your product just to land in the US. And then there's another delay to get your product to Amazon FBA ready for active listings. You have to create your listings, you have to do the marketing, and there's going to be a delay before you even see a return on that investment. And of course, ordering such a large amount and there's a delay, the amount of capital that it takes is going to be a lot larger than something you could do, let's say retail or online arbitrage. So instead of playing around with $500 out in a Walmart or spending $1,000 on online arbitrage for a day or spending $5,000 for wholesale, you now are looking at spending $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 at a time to be able to get mass amounts of product from China over to the US and ready for listing. So if you have the time, you have the capital to wait on that delay, this might be the right business model for you. But like I said earlier, this is why I'm a fan of starting with retail and online arbitrage, working your way into wholesale, and this all builds capital and cash flow so that you can comfortably place an order in China, and that delay is not going to hinder your cash flow. This has been lesson number 3. Thanks for tuning in. Now you should understand the 4 basic business models to Amazon. Here's my final thoughts. Everyone is always going to ask, which one do I start with? I highly recommend, no matter where you are at, even if you want to get into wholesale and private label, you start, even if it's just for the first month, start with retail and online arbitrage. You're going to run into brand restrictions. You're going to see a lot of product that you can't sell. So you need to focus on the ones that you can. I recommend that you start with that method. 1, to get practice in more than anything, because trial and error experience is going to teach you way more than even a video course will. And reason number 2, you're going to build up your cash flow. You're going to get that consistency and you're going to learn how to send product to Amazon, how to deal with the back end pricing and all that stuff that goes with it, and then go out and do it again. The more practice you get under your belt, the cash flow starts to come in. Then you can work your way into the wholesale model and then go down the private label route if you want to. Ultimately, there's no wrong method here. Every single business model that I just explained, there are many in every single one of them. Many multi-million-dollar revenue sellers in every single one. Retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale, and private label. There are 7 and 8 figure earners in every single one of those, so there is no wrong method, and each method is going to be unique to what you want to do and what's going to fit your lifestyle. If you want a lifestyle where you don't have to physically be putting in hours and hours and hours of work, retail arbitrage is not going to be a right fit for you because you have to go out and drive to find the product. Private label or wholesale is going to be more for you in that case. And then vice versa. If you're able to have a skill set where you're able to build a team around you, a team of shoppers, people to help you do prepping and shipping, you can scale a retail arbitrage business to huge levels. Ultimately, it's all going to be about trial and error, because you are not going to know exactly which models that you enjoy most until you just dive in and practice. Thanks for tuning into lesson number 3. We will see you in number 4.